8-year-old girl begs for scraps. What a millionaire discovers behind her tears is unbelievable. The restaurant buzzed with clinking glasses and laughter, its golden lighting glowing like a beacon against the evening fog. Outside, the cold bit through the coats of passing pedestrians. That's when Nathaniel Gray saw her. She was tiny, no more than 8 years old, with matted hair and wide, haunting eyes that seemed far too old for her age. Clutching a stained backpack to her chest, she stood near the dumpsters, whispering timid pleas to waiters who exited the kitchen doors. "Please. Just the crusts," she said, barely audible over the noise of the street. Nathaniel was seated at the corner window, sipping a glass of Barolo, waiting for his date, who was, as always, late. He was used to ignoring the world beyond his plate. Poverty was someone else's problem, but something about the child's eyes held him. They were brimming with fear and something else, a deep, aching sorrow. The waiter brushed past her like she was invisible. She flinched but didn't move. Nathaniel's chest tightened unexpectedly. He stood up slowly, leaving his wine untouched. Slipping on his tailored coat, he exited the front door and crossed the street. The girl saw him coming and immediately took a step back, defensive. "I'm not stealing," she said quickly, voice shaking. "I'm just hungry." Nathaniel crouched slightly to her level. "What's your name?" he asked softly. The girl hesitated, eyes darting past him. "Luna," she whispered. Her lips were cracked, her hands red from the cold. She couldn't have weighed more than 50 pounds. "Do you have parents, Luna?" he asked, more curious than he expected to be. She shook her head. "They're gone. Gone." The word hit him harder than expected. Maybe it was the way she said it, like it had been drilled into her by someone else. She turned, clutching her backpack tighter, and began walking quickly down the alley. He hesitated, then almost instinctively, he followed. Nathaniel kept a careful distance, his polished shoes echoing softly against the damp pavement as he trailed Luna through the maze of alleys behind the restaurant. She moved with the cautious precision of someone who had done this before, avoiding puddles, darting behind trash bins when footsteps neared, her small figure melting into the shadows like smoke. Every so often she glanced over her shoulder. He pretended to look away each time, feeling strangely ashamed for following her, yet unable to stop. She eventually crossed a busy street, slipping unnoticed between cars. Nathaniel had to jog to keep up, narrowly missing a cab as he hurried across. Luna turned into a side street lined with abandoned buildings, graffiti covering their facades like bruises. The deeper she went, the darker it became, until even the streetlights faded. Nathaniel paused, wondering if this was safe, or if he was completely out of his mind. But then he saw her again, crouching beside what used to be a loading dock, pulling back a loose board hidden beneath a tattered sheet of cardboard. She disappeared inside. Nathaniel approached slowly, hearing the muffled creak of wood beneath his weight. The air smelled of rust and mold. He knelt and peeked inside. The room beyond was dimly lit by the flicker of a battery-powered lantern. The floor was concrete, cracked and cold, but someone had laid out thin blankets and cardboard in a neat pile. Luna sat cross-legged beside a small metal box, where a few crusts of bread and half-eaten apples were carefully stacked like treasure. Her hands trembled as she unzipped her backpack and removed a torn photo, something she stared at with such intensity that Nathaniel felt like he was intruding on something sacred. He pulled back, heart thudding. He should leave. He didn't belong here. But then she began to speak, quietly to herself. "He has to come back. He promised. Mommy said he would." Nathaniel froze. She was talking to the photo. Her voice cracked on the word, "Daddy." Something surged inside him. A memory. A voice. A face he hadn't seen in years. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He stepped back quickly, but his foot knocked over a bottle. The clatter echoed like a gunshot. Luna shot up. "Who's there?" she cried, her small frame suddenly rigid with fear. She darted to the entrance, eyes wide. They locked eyes again. She blinked. "You followed me." Nathaniel raised his hands. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice raw. I wanted to make sure you were safe." She stared at him, suspicion warring with curiosity. "You said your name is Luna?" he asked gently. She nodded slowly. He hesitated, then said the words that had been trapped in his chest since he saw the photo. "I once knew a girl who named her daughter Luna." The silence between them stretched, heavy and strange, as if time itself had paused to listen. Luna's eyes narrowed. "How would you know that?" she asked, her voice sharp now, protective. She took a step back into the dimness of her shelter, her hand clutching the frayed edge of the photo. Nathaniel didn't answer immediately. He took a slow breath, as though steadying himself for something far heavier than he could have imagined when he walked into that restaurant. "Because? A long time ago I was in love with her," he said. "Her name was Callie." Luna froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Nathaniel stepped closer, just enough so the lantern light caught his face. "She was bright, wild, impossible to forget," he murmured. "She used to say that if she ever had a daughter, she'd name her Luna, after the moon, because the moon was always watching, even when no one else was." Luna's hands slowly dropped to her sides. "That's what Mommy always said," she whispered. "She said the moon was Daddy's eye watching over me." The words hit Nathaniel like a blow to the chest. He staggered back, blinking hard. "Where is she, Luna?" he asked hoarsely. "Where's Callie?" Luna's lip trembled. She lowered her gaze. "She died last year. Got sick, too fast. We were staying at a shelter then. After she was gone, they tried to take me. But I ran. I couldn't go with strangers." Nathaniel's vision blurred. Callie was gone. The woman he once loved so fiercely that he'd considered throwing away his entire future for her. Gone. And this girl, this fragile, sharp-eyed child, was hers. His. The possibility tangled his thoughts, sent his pulse racing. He crouched again, lowering himself to her level. "Luna," he said slowly, "do you know your father's name?" She hesitated. "Mommy said his name was Nate. She never told me more, just that he couldn't stay, that he didn't know about me." Nate. No one had called him that in years. Nathaniel felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. She didn't know. Callie had never told her, had never told him. He covered his mouth with one hand, shaking. He had a daughter. He had this daughter, living on the streets, cold, alone. For how long? "Luna," he whispered. I think I might be your father." Luna stepped back, eyes wide, unreadable. She clutched the photo to her chest again and turned, disappearing into the shadows of the shelter. "Wait," he called after her. "Please." But her voice came back low and guarded. "People say a lot of things when they feel bad. That doesn't make them true." Nathaniel didn't move. He stood there in the semi-darkness of the abandoned warehouse, his breath visible in the chill, his heart pounding with the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions. Luna had disappeared behind a curtain of hanging plastic, a makeshift wall within her fragile sanctuary. He could hear the rustle of fabric, the shuffle of her small footsteps. She was hiding from him now, and who could blame her? He sank slowly to the ground, resting his back against the wall. The concrete was cold even through his tailored coat, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, the sharp edges of his carefully controlled life were crumbling. The weight of everything he hadn't known, hadn't dared to find out, crashed down around him. He'd loved Callie. God, he had loved her, but they were young, stupid, and from different worlds. She was wild and full of fire. He was on a track set by his wealthy, controlling family. His father had threatened to cut him off, destroy her, ruin everything. So he'd walked away, thinking he was protecting her. She'd never reached out, never told him she was pregnant. And now she was gone. "Why didn't she tell me?" he whispered, the words barely a breath. From behind the plastic curtain, a small voice answered. "She said you wouldn't want us." Nathaniel sat up straighter. "That's not true," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't know. If I had, I would have done everything. Anything." Silence. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. From a small side flap, he retrieved an old photo, creased and fading, from the summer he and Callie had spent on the coast. She was laughing in the picture, barefoot in the sand, her hair tangled by the wind. He stared at it for a long moment, then set it gently on the floor, pushing it toward the curtain. "This was the last day I saw her," he said quietly. "She was radiant. She told me she loved me, and I told her. I told her I had to go." The curtain didn't move. "I didn't know she was carrying you, Luna. I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because I was stupid and scared. And I've regretted it every day since." Footsteps, bare, soft, hesitant. Then Luna appeared again, just enough to look down at the photo. "That's her," she said, touching it lightly. "She looked happy." "She was," Nathaniel murmured. "With you. I bet she was even happier." Luna didn't answer. She sat down across from him, still gripping her own tattered photo. He noticed now that it had been ripped in half, her mother on one side, the other side missing. "Do you have a place to go?" he asked after a moment. She shrugged. "Here's safe. Safer than most places." Nathaniel swallowed the knot in his throat. "Would you come with me, just for tonight? Somewhere warm. Food. A real bed." She looked at him hard, searching his face. "Do you promise not to disappear like he did?" Nathaniel felt those words hit with the force of 1,000 accusations, though they came from the voice of a child. His chest tightened as he met Luna's gaze, so small, so guarded, but already carved by too many betrayals. She wasn't asking for comfort, she was demanding truth, and this time he couldn't offer anything less. "I promise," he said softly but firmly. "I will not disappear." Luna didn't move at first. She watched him for what felt like forever, her brows drawn, lips pressed together. Then, slowly, she reached for the old photograph he'd given her and held it next to her own. One half of a memory meeting the other. She fit them together like a puzzle, Callie's face whole again for the first time in years. "She kept this one in her book," Luna said, her voice quiet. "The one with all the poems. She used to read them to me when I was scared at night. She said the moon was full of poems." Nathaniel smiled faintly through the ache in his chest. "She was always writing. She once read me a poem that made me cry on a train to Boston." Luna's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close. Then, wordlessly, she stood and walked to a corner of the room where a threadbare coat was hanging from a hook. She slipped it on, tucked the photos into her backpack, and slung it over one shoulder. "I'll come," she said, looking up at him, "but only for one night." Nathaniel nodded. "That's more than enough for now." They stepped into the night together. The city was colder than before, but Nathaniel hardly noticed. He called for his driver, giving him a new address. His penthouse, not the private hotel suite he usually escaped to. This wasn't a business meeting or a charity function. This was something else entirely. Luna climbed into the car beside him, staring in awe at the leather seats, the glowing lights on the dashboard. He offered her a bottle of water and a small snack bar from the console. She hesitated, then accepted it with a soft, "Thank you." They rode in silence most of the way. But just as they crossed the bridge into the city's heart, Luna asked, "Do you have pictures of when you were little?" He glanced at her. "Yeah, somewhere in a box. Can I see them sometime?" "Of course." She looked out the window again, the skyscrapers glinting like stars. "Maybe we can find more pieces of her together." Nathaniel turned to her, his eyes burning. "I'd like that more than anything." As the car turned into the driveway of his building, he glanced down at the girl beside him, this fragile miracle of fate and silence, and realized something terrifying and beautiful all at once. He wasn't sure who had saved whom tonight, but just as they stepped out onto the curb, a woman across the street froze mid-step, her eyes locked on Luna, and her expression turned white with shock. The woman's breath caught in her throat as her eyes fixed on the child stepping out of the sleek black car. She was dressed in a long beige coat, her hands trembling at her sides. From where he stood, Nathaniel could see that her face had gone pale, her mouth slightly open, as if trying to form words. Luna, unaware, adjusted her backpack and reached for his hand. "Luna," the woman whispered, almost too quietly to be heard, but Nathaniel heard it. And so did Luna. The girl's small fingers tightened around his. He turned fully toward the woman. She looked no older than 30, but there was something brittle in the way she held herself, as if the weight of years had pressed heavily against her spirit. She took a step forward, then another, and stopped just a few feet from them. "Luna?" she repeated, louder this time, her voice cracking. Luna blinked, looked up at Nathaniel, then back at the woman. "Do I know you?" she asked, confused. The woman's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. "Oh my God, it is you." She turned to Nathaniel, her voice sharp now, almost accusatory. "Where did you find her? How did she get here? What are you doing with her?" Nathaniel stepped in front of Luna instinctively. "I think you need to tell me who you are first." The woman shook her head slowly, as if trying to make sense of a dream. "My name is Mia Davenport. I'm her aunt, Callie's younger sister." Luna froze. "You knew my mum?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I more than knew her," Mia said, stepping forward carefully. "I lived with her for years, but when she left our hometown we lost touch. I searched everywhere when I heard she was sick. After she passed, I was told Luna was missing. I've been looking for her ever since." Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. "How did you know what she looked like now?" Mia reached into her purse with shaky fingers and pulled out a dog-eared manila folder. Inside was a stack of flyers, printed photos of Luna as a smaller child, her name in bold letters, the word "missing" stamped across the top. "I never stopped looking," she said, her voice breaking. Luna's lip trembled. "You're my mum's sister." Mia nodded quickly. "I am, and I loved her so much. I would have taken you in. I tried, Luna. I tried." Nathaniel felt the weight of the moment settle like dust on his shoulders. There was no denying the resemblance now. Luna and Mia had the same dark eyes, the same sharp cheekbones, but something else lingered in the air. A question, a tension. If Mia had been searching all this time, why hadn't she found her sooner? And why was Luna looking at her with something more than confusion? Something closer to fear? Luna's eyes darted between Nathaniel and Mia, her small frame stiffening. Her grip on Nathaniel's hand didn't loosen. In fact, she stepped a fraction closer to him, the space between her and Mia charged with something neither woman nor man fully understood yet. "I remember you," Luna said softly, her voice barely audible. "But not from when I was happy." Mia's smile faltered. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Luna's eyes narrowed slightly. "You came once, before Mommy got sick. You yelled. Mommy told you to leave. She was crying after. She said you weren't safe." Mia's expression hardened just for a split second. Then she quickly masked it with concern. "That's not true," she said, a little too quickly. "Your mom was confused. She was unwell even back then." Nathaniel felt the air shift. He glanced down at Luna, whose face had gone blank, emotionless in a way that made his heart ache. Children shouldn't know how to shut down like that. "She wasn't confused," Luna said simply. "She said you wanted to take me away even when she was alive." "I wanted to protect you," Mia snapped, then caught herself. "I mean, I was worried. I had to try." Nathaniel stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "Mia, if you care about her, you'll need to slow down. You're coming in like a storm, and she's lived through enough of those already." Mia looked at him, really looked at him now. "Who are you exactly?" she asked, her tone laced with suspicion. Nathaniel didn't flinch. "Nathaniel Gray. I knew Callie when we were young. And I think—" He paused, his voice steady despite the weight of what he was about to say. "I think I might be Luna's father." The air went still. Mia stared at him, then at Luna. "That's impossible," she muttered. "Callie she never said—" "She didn't," Nathaniel replied. "I only found out tonight. Luna looked up at him. He found me behind a restaurant. He didn't leave me there. He followed me. He listened. Something in that statement made Mia recoil slightly. She turned away, running a hand through her hair. "Look," Mia said finally, her voice trembling now, the cracks in her composure growing. "Maybe I made mistakes. Maybe I came on too strong. But I've been looking for her for months. I've filed reports. I've gone to shelters. She's my niece." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "I understand. But right now, what she needs isn't just someone with a legal claim. She needs someone she trusts." Mia looked at Luna again, and this time the sadness in her eyes was real. "You have no idea what we lost," she whispered. But Luna's gaze didn't soften. "You weren't there when we needed you," she said. "You're only here now." The words hung in the air, final and cold, like the wind off the river behind them. The doorman, sensing the tension but trained not to interfere, held the glass door open as Nathaniel gently guided Luna inside. Mia hesitated at the threshold, her expression unreadable as she watched them cross the marble-floored lobby. Her heels clicked behind them, a forced grace in each step as she tried to catch up. Inside the elevator, the silence was thick. Luna leaned against the mirrored wall, staring at the lights above her as the numbers blinked upward. Nathaniel stood beside her, his hands in his pockets, heart pounding. Mia stood at the back, arms folded, watching both of them through the reflection like a hawk. "I just want what's best for her," she said suddenly, her voice low. "So do I," Nathaniel replied without turning. Luna didn't speak. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again when the elevator chimed and the doors slid open. The penthouse was warm and softly lit, a sharp contrast to the cold outside. Luna stepped inside slowly, eyes widening at the vast space, the tall windows, the glowing city beyond. She moved carefully, like someone expecting the ground to vanish beneath her feet. Nathaniel knelt down to her level. "You're safe here," he said gently. "No one's going to take you away, not unless you want to go." Luna looked at him, then at Mia, who had stepped inside but remained near the door. "I want to sleep," she whispered. "Of course." Nathaniel rose, motioning toward the hallway. "There's a guest room down there. It's yours tonight." Luna nodded and padded down the hall, her backpack still slung over one shoulder. Once she was gone, Nathaniel turned to Mia. "What really happened between you and Callie?" Mia sighed and sank onto the nearest armchair. "She left when she got pregnant, refused help from everyone, said she had to do it on her own. But when she got sick, someone from the shelter called me. I came to find her, but it was too late." "And Luna?" "She ran before I could get to her. The shelter couldn't hold her. I hired people, filed reports, but it's like she vanished." Nathaniel sat across from her. "She remembers you, and not fondly." Mia looked away. "Callie always thought I wanted control. She never understood I was just trying to save her from herself." Nathaniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Mia hesitated. "There were things about Callie, things you probably never saw. She was unstable toward the end, paranoid, talking to shadows. I think the sickness started long before it showed in her body." He stared at her. "Luna never mentioned any of that." "She wouldn't. Children remember what they need to survive." Nathaniel leaned forward. "You need to understand something. I'm not handing Luna over just because you show up with papers and a sad story." Mia narrowed her eyes. "And you think you're her father now, after one night?" "I think I might be the only person she trusts. And until I'm proven otherwise, I intend to protect that." Mia rose, her jaw tight. "You're playing hero, Nathaniel, but you don't know what you're stepping into." And with that, she turned and walked out the door, heels clicking like a countdown behind her. Nathaniel stood in the quiet penthouse long after Mia left, the echo of her warning lingering like smoke. He glanced down the hallway toward the guest room. The door was closed, and he imagined Luna curled beneath the covers, her tiny body finally wrapped in warmth. He exhaled slowly, then crossed to the window, staring out at the glittering skyline. The city had always felt like a symbol of his success. Now, it felt like a cage, cold, towering, and full of things he didn't understand. He needed answers, real ones. He retrieved his phone from his coat and scrolled through his contacts until he found a name: Marisol Vega, a private investigator he'd used for corporate matters, sharp, discreet, and terrifyingly efficient. "I need to know everything about a woman named Mia Davenport," he said when she picked up. Full background, especially any legal claims or guardianship petitions related to a child named Luna Rivers. There was a pause. Then Marisol said, "You finally found the girl?" Nathaniel blinked. "You knew? You asked me to find Callie years ago. I kept digging even when you stopped asking. I knew she had a daughter, but the trail went cold." His grip tightened. "Start digging again." He ended the call and poured himself a glass of water with shaking hands. He wasn't prepared for this. How could he be? One night had flipped his entire world on its head, but somehow in that storm of uncertainty, one thing remained unshakable: Luna. She wasn't just a lost girl anymore, she was his. Whether proven by blood or not, the bond had already begun to root itself deep. A soft sound pulled him from his thoughts. He turned to see Luna standing at the edge of the hallway, her eyes heavy with sleep, but alert. "I had a bad dream," she whispered. He set the glass down and approached her gently. "You want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "Just didn't feel like I was safe." "You are," he said, kneeling beside her. "I'm right here." Luna hesitated, then leaned forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Nathaniel froze for a moment, then slowly returned the embrace, pulling her close, his throat tightening with emotion. "I missed this," she mumbled against his shoulder. "You missed what?" "Feeling like someone would be there if I woke up scared." Nathaniel closed his eyes. "I'm not going anywhere, Luna. Not now. Not ever." They sat like that for a long time, the city lights washing them in soft gold. But far below, across town, Mia sat in her car gripping her phone. She stared at a message thread she'd never deleted. Old texts with Callie, full of pain and fury, and one unsent draft that read, "He's going to find out. I don't think I can stop him." With trembling fingers, she finally pressed send, but not to Callie, to someone else, someone who had just replied, "Then we'll have to make sure he never gets the chance." The next morning arrived with a hesitant dawn, light creeping through the tall windows of the penthouse in pale gold streaks. Nathaniel stirred on the living room couch, the soft rustle of movement waking him. He opened his eyes to find Luna curled in the oversized armchair across from him, already awake, cradling a mug of hot cocoa that the housekeeper must have prepared. She stared out the window as if reading something in the clouds. "Do sleep okay after?" he asked, his voice gravelly from the couch nap. She nodded without looking at him. "Better than usual." Nathaniel sat up, rubbing the back of his neck. "You hungry?" "I could eat," she said with a small smile, "but only if it's pancakes." He smiled back. "Then pancakes it is." As breakfast began to sizzle in the kitchen, Luna wandered through the penthouse slowly, her fingers grazing the edges of picture frames, bookshelves, the grand piano in the corner. "You live here by yourself?" she asked. "For a while now, yes." "No wife? No kids?" Nathaniel hesitated as he flipped a pancake. "No, not yet." Luna looked thoughtful. "It's big, quiet. Feels like the kind of place you have to earn your voice in." He turned to her, surprised by the depth in her words. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "I used to live in loud places, the shelter, the streets, even the good homes. Everyone talked all the time, even when no one was listening." Nathaniel set a plate of pancakes before her and knelt. "Well, here your voice matters, always." Luna watched him for a moment, then picked up her fork. "You cook better than most people I've met." He chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." They ate quietly but comfortably. The air between them had shifted, lighter now, like the first breath after a long dive. Nathaniel felt something bloom in his chest, something like purpose. But just as he began clearing the dishes, the front door buzzer rang. He checked the intercom screen and frowned. Two sharply dressed men stood outside. One held a clipboard, the other wore the rigid expression of someone used to not being questioned. Nathaniel pressed the button. "Yes? This is Child Protective Services. We need to speak with you regarding a minor reported in your custody." Nathaniel's blood ran cold. Luna stood in the hallway behind him, eyes wide, her fork still in hand. "What does that mean?" she asked softly. Nathaniel didn't answer immediately. He pressed the intercom again. "Who reported this?" The man looked at the clipboard. "Mia Davenport. She claims the child was taken without consent." Luna's body stiffened. "No," she whispered. Nathaniel turned to her. "Go to your room, Luna. Stay there. Don't open the door for anyone but me." Her eyes welled up. "Are they going to take me?" "Not if I can help it," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. But even as he turned back toward the door, a terrible thought was already forming in the back of his mind. Mia hadn't come alone, and she hadn't come just to fight. She'd come to erase the truth. Nathaniel opened the door slowly, every muscle in his body tense. The two CPS agents stepped into the foyer, their eyes scanning the penthouse with a quiet efficiency that made him feel suddenly exposed. The older one, a woman with steel-gray hair and a hard gaze, introduced herself as Agent Halberd. Her partner, younger and colder, said nothing, just took out a tablet and began taking notes. "You were reported to be harboring a missing minor," Agent Halberd began. "We'd like to confirm the child's welfare and establish how she came into your custody." "I didn't harbor her," Nathaniel said, keeping his tone controlled. "I found her behind a restaurant. She was cold, alone, and starving. I brought her here for safety." "Did you contact the authorities?" she asked. "I was going to," he lied, "but she told me her mother had passed recently. Her name is Luna Rivers. Her mother was Callie Rivers. I believe—" His throat tightened. "I believe I'm her biological father." Halberd raised an eyebrow. "Do you have proof of that?" "Not yet," Nathaniel admitted, "but I've already started the process. I have a PI working on background information. I'll submit a paternity test as soon as possible." The younger agent finally spoke. "You understand the seriousness of this situation. If you are not her legal guardian, and she is considered endangered or missing, we're obligated to remove her from this residence until custody is resolved." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. She's been through hell. The last thing she needs is to be ripped out of a safe environment and thrown back into the system. "We're not here to debate trauma, Mr. Gray. We're here to protect the child." He glanced down the hall. Luna's door was closed. He could only imagine how much she was hearing. "I'm not a threat to her," he said, voice low but fierce. "If anything, I'm the only one who hasn't lied to her." Agent Halberd nodded slightly. "We'll need to speak with her." Nathaniel hesitated, then called gently, "Luna, it's okay. Come out, sweetheart." She emerged slowly, barefoot, her eyes red but steady. She clutched the photo of her mother to her chest. "Luna," Halberd said in a softer tone, kneeling to her level. "Do you know this man?" Luna nodded. "Do you feel safe here?" Luna's chin lifted. "Yes." "Do you know who I am?" "You're here to take me away." Halberd paused, taken aback. "Only if it's not safe for you to stay." Luna turned to Nathaniel. "Can I tell them the truth?" He nodded once, heart in his throat. So she did. About the streets, the fear, the way Mia yelled at her mother, the day she ran, and the man who found her, fed her, and didn't leave. When she finished, Halberd stood slowly. "We'll have to file a full report. There will be hearings." "Does that mean I'm staying?" Luna asked. Halberd looked at Nathaniel. "For now." But the word "yet" hung in the air like a guillotine waiting to fall. After the agents left, the silence in the penthouse felt different, thick with unease. Nathaniel stood near the door, watching the elevator doors close, the tension still pulsing through his limbs. Luna lingered in the hallway, arms wrapped tightly around herself as if bracing for something worse. Nathaniel turned to her. "You were incredible," he said gently. "You told the truth. That takes strength." Luna didn't smile. "They didn't say I could stay forever, just for now. That's what people say before they leave." He crossed the room and crouched in front of her. "I'm not leaving, and I'm not letting anyone take you without a fight. I promise." She looked at him for a long moment. "They won't believe you unless you prove it." "I will." Just then his phone vibrated. A message from Marisol Vega, short and urgent. "You need to see this. Mia's not who she claims to be." His pulse quickened. He typed back immediately. "Come to the penthouse. Bring everything." He stood and turned to Luna. "I think it's time we learn the truth. All of it." Less than an hour later, Marisol arrived. She moved with her usual precision, a tablet tucked under her arm and a look of restrained concern on her face. "I pulled everything I could on Mia Davenport," she said, dropping her coat onto a chair. "And it's worse than we thought." Nathaniel motioned for her to sit. Luna curled up quietly on the armrest beside him. "Mia's been trying to get guardianship of Luna for months, but not out of concern," Marisol said, pulling up files. "She's in serious debt. Multiple lawsuits, including one from a rehab center she checked into 6 months ago under a fake name. She's bankrupt." Nathaniel frowned. "She wants custody for the check." "Exactly," Marisol nodded. "She's petitioned for state subsidies, private funding, even tried to contact media outlets about rescuing her niece. She didn't find Luna by accident. She was tipped off by someone who works in CPS, a friend from her past." Luna's expression tightened. "She said Mommy was crazy." Marisol shook her head. "There's no medical history supporting that. In fact, Callie's hospital records show she had late-stage lymphoma. Painful, aggressive, but her mind was clear to the end. She even listed Luna's father on one document." Nathaniel sat forward. "What name?" Marisol turned the tablet to face him. On the screen, under Father of Child, it read, "Nathaniel Gray." His throat closed. "She knew," he whispered. "She knew, and still didn't tell me." Luna leaned her head on his shoulder. Marisol looked at them both. "With this, you have a strong case to pursue full custody, but you'll need to act fast. If Mia senses you have proof, she could try to disappear with her." Nathaniel met her gaze. "Then we don't give her the chance." But just as he reached for his phone to call his lawyer, it buzzed again. This time, a blocked number. He answered cautiously. "Hello?" A voice, low and distorted, replied, "You think she's your daughter. You have no idea what Callie kept from you. If you don't stop digging, you'll regret what you find." Nathaniel gripped the phone tighter, his breath catching as the line went dead. The synthetic chill of the distorted voice echoed in his ears, more disturbing than threatening. Not just because of the message, but because of the truth buried beneath it. He looked at Luna, her small body leaning against his side, unaware of the call's contents. Marisol was already watching him closely. "What did they say?" she asked. "They knew Callie," he said quietly. "They told me to stop digging, or I'd regret what I found." Marisol's eyes narrowed. "That confirms it. Someone else is invested in keeping Luna's past buried." Nathaniel nodded. "Which means the truth is even bigger than Mia, and I'm not backing down." He stood and crossed the room, retrieving a thick file folder from his private study, documents he hadn't looked at in years, letters from Callie, photos from their summer together, the brief moments before everything fell apart. He spread them across the table beside Marisol's tablet. "Callie never said why she left so suddenly," he said. "She just disappeared. I assumed she gave up on us. But what if someone made her leave?" Marisol tapped on her tablet again. "I found one strange thing. There's a sealed court record tied to Callie from about 9 years ago. Same month Luna was born. No details, just a name. Rivers vs. Gray Holdings." Nathaniel's blood ran cold. "Gray Holdings. That's my family's company." Marisol nodded. "Looks like someone tried to erase it. Might have been your father." "My father would have buried anything that threatened the family name," Nathaniel muttered, including an unwanted pregnancy. He turned to Luna again, his heart aching. She stared at him with wide eyes, quietly watching the pieces fall into place. "Luna," he said gently, "do you remember anyone besides your mum and Mia from when you were really little?" She frowned. "There was a man once. He came to the apartment when I was maybe 3 or 4. Mommy got really upset and yelled at him to leave. He wore a long coat and had a ring with a lion on it." Nathaniel froze. "A lion?" She nodded. "Gold. On his finger." Nathaniel turned to Marisol, eyes wide. "That's my family's crest, my father's signet ring." Marisol stared at him. "Are you saying your father found them?" "He threatened her," Nathaniel said, voice breaking. "He must have known. He didn't just force me away from her. He found her and scared her into silence." Luna's fingers curled into fists. "Mommy cried all night after he left. She said we had to run, that she'd made a mistake trusting someone." Nathaniel's rage built silently, decades of doubt and guilt crashing down into one horrifying conclusion. Callie had protected their daughter from his own father, alone, dying, and still shielding Luna from a man who'd already taken everything from her. "I let it happen," he whispered. Marisol put a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't know, but now you do, and now you fight." Nathaniel nodded, slowly rising to his feet. "I'm going to expose him, all of it." But across the city, in a dark corner office, William Gray, Nathaniel's father, watched a security feed from his penthouse lobby. And he murmured to his assistant, "Call Marlowe. Tell him it's time we put an end to this little family reunion." That afternoon, Nathaniel made the call he'd been dreading for over a decade. The number still worked, his father's direct line. It rang only once before a familiar, cold voice answered. "Nathaniel." His throat tightened. "We need to talk." A pause. "I thought we already said everything that mattered years ago." "We didn't. You lied to me about Callie, about Luna, about everything." Another silence, longer this time. "You've been busy," William Gray said finally, "digging in graves best left undisturbed." "You found her," Nathaniel said. "You threatened her. You knew she was pregnant, and instead of telling me, you buried it. You destroyed her life." His father's voice didn't change. "I protected yours. You had a future, a name. She had nothing. I made sure that mistake didn't ruin what we built." Nathaniel's voice rose. "She wasn't a mistake, and neither is Luna." "She's an echo of a decision you were too foolish to make," William snapped. "You were never meant to see her, but now that you have, you'll do what's best. You'll walk away." "I'm not you," Nathaniel said, cold fury in his chest. "And I won't let you control her life the way you controlled mine." "You think you can win this?" his father sneered. "Mia is weak, but she's willing. I already backed her petition. She'll have legal custody within weeks." Nathaniel's heart stopped. "You funded Mia." "I created Mia," William said simply. "I pulled her out of her own pit, put her in position, gave her a script. She's nothing without my backing, and she knows it." Nathaniel was trembling now, the betrayal sharper than any knife. "You sent CPS to my home. I warned you to stop digging." "I'm not stopping," Nathaniel said. "And if you try to take her from me, I will bury you with the truth." There was a pause. "Be careful, son," William said softly. "There are things even love can't protect." The line went dead. Nathaniel lowered the phone slowly, the icy silence left in its place only fueling his resolve. He turned to find Luna standing in the doorway. She didn't speak, but she had heard enough. Her eyes searched his face. "That was him, wasn't it?" He nodded. "Is he going to try to take me?" Nathaniel walked over and knelt in front of her. "He might try, but he's not going to win." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the lion ring, the same one she'd seen years ago. "Mommy found it in the mailbox once," she whispered. "She said it was a warning." He took it gently from her hand. It was real, heavy, solid gold, a mark of power, a relic of fear. "Not anymore," he said. "Now it's proof." And as the sun dipped low behind the skyline, Nathaniel understood what had to come next. He would take his father to court, and for the first time, he would fight not just for his name, but for his daughter's future. The following morning, the air in the penthouse was charged with purpose. Nathaniel stood in the kitchen, already dressed in a dark suit, crisp and composed, but beneath the polished surface, a storm brewed. On the table sat the ring Luna had given him, beside the folder of evidence Marisol had compiled. Documents, timelines, hospital records, and now, the confirmation of paternity. A knock at the door. He opened it to find Marisol holding a new envelope, her face unreadable. DNA results came in this morning. You're the father. No question. Nathaniel exhaled, emotion flooding his chest. He nodded and took the envelope, fingers tightening around it. I've already sent copies to your attorney, she said. He's filing the emergency custody petition today. Luna appeared behind him, dressed in jeans and a hoodie, her backpack over her shoulder. Are we going somewhere? Nathaniel crouched to meet her eyes. We're going to see a judge, so we can make this official. Luna's voice was barely above a whisper. Will he be there? Your father? Nathaniel hesitated. Maybe, but I'll be with you the whole time. She nodded, brave in her quiet way. Then I'm not scared. At the courthouse, the hallways echoed with tense voices and footsteps. Nathaniel's lawyer, a poised woman named Diane Mercer, greeted them with calm efficiency. She led them into a waiting room, explaining the process: a preliminary hearing, temporary guardianship motion, presentation of evidence. All of it hinging on proving not only paternity, but that Luna's current well-being would be jeopardized if she was returned to Mia. Nathaniel watched as Luna sat beside Diane, quietly flipping through a sketchbook. The sight of her in this sterile place, trying to stay small and silent, filled him with a rage he barely contained. Then the door opened. Mia walked in with her attorney, looking polished and rehearsed. Gone was the desperate woman from the street. In her place stood someone styled and calculated, with eyes that didn't match the smile she forced at Luna. "Hi, sweetie," she said. "It's good to see you again." Luna said nothing. She moved slightly closer to Nathaniel, who stood protectively between them. Mia turned to him. "This isn't personal, Nate. I just want what's best for her." "You don't know what's best for her," he said, his voice low and steady. "You never did." The bailiff entered. "Court is now in session." The courtroom was quiet. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense tone, listened carefully as both sides presented their cases. Diane presented the DNA proof, the medical history, the sealed court records, and finally the ring tied directly to William Gray's involvement. But just as the judge was preparing her statement, Mia stood. "I have one more piece of testimony," she said. The judge allowed it. From the back of the courtroom, a man entered, tall, clean-cut, familiar, William Gray. He took the stand with calm authority. "I am here to protect my family's legacy. That child is not safe with my son." Luna's breath caught. Nathaniel rose to his feet. "Objection!" Diane shouted. "This man is not on the witness list." But the judge allowed it, and William turned toward Nathaniel, his voice chilling. Nathaniel was diagnosed with manic episodes in his 20s, hospitalized once. "You really want to give custody to a man with that history?" Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Nathaniel felt the world tilt, and Luna's small voice cut through the chaos. "You're lying." The judge banged her gavel, but her eyes never left Luna. The judge called for a brief recess, but the damage had been done. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, eyes turning toward Nathaniel like he was some fragile spectacle. He sat rigid, trying to breathe through the storm that had just been unleashed. Across the aisle, William Gray remained a composed figure of power, his face unreadable as he whispered something to Mia, who nodded without looking up. Diane leaned toward Nathaniel, her voice low but firm. "Is it true?" He nodded slowly. "I had one breakdown, years ago, after Callie disappeared. I checked myself into a clinic. It was voluntary. I got help. I've been stable ever since." "Do you have medical documentation?" "Yes, I can get it." Then that's what we'll do. Luna was sitting next to him, her small hand slipping into his without a word. He looked at her and saw not fear, but loyalty. Fierce, quiet loyalty that nearly undid him. "He's lying," she whispered. "He's trying to scare them." Nathaniel squeezed her hand. "I know. But we have to fight with truth, not fear." In the hallway outside, Marisol met them with her phone in hand. "I just pulled William's financial disclosures. He's been paying Mia monthly for the last 8 months through a shell corporation." Diane's eyes sharpened. "If we can prove that in court, it'll shred her credibility." "We can," Marisol said. "And there's more." A hospital intern from the clinic Nathaniel attended years ago came forward. Says William pressured them to fabricate a more serious diagnosis. Nathaniel blinked. "What?" "Apparently, William threatened to ruin their career if they didn't adjust the records. They saved the emails. They've agreed to testify anonymously." Diane's jaw tightened. That could swing the whole case. Inside the courtroom, the judge returned and called for both parties. Mia's lawyer rose. "Your Honor, we respectfully ask that Nathaniel Gray's mental health history be weighed heavily in the court's consideration of Luna River's safety." Diane stood immediately. "Your Honor, we'd like to present newly uncovered evidence that not only confirms Mr. Gray's mental health is stable and managed, but that any record suggesting otherwise was influenced by coercion by none other than William Gray." The judge frowned. "That's a serious allegation." "We have documentation, emails, and a statement from a former hospital employee. Furthermore, we have proof that Mr. Gray has been paying Ms. Davenport through a front company, potentially to manipulate this custody case." The courtroom exploded in murmurs. William Gray stood slowly. "This is a circus." The judge turned sharply. "Mr. Gray, sit down." He did, but his eyes were blazing. The judge reviewed the documents carefully. After a long pause, she looked up. "This court finds substantial cause to question the credibility of Ms. Davenport's petition. Effective immediately, temporary custody of Luna Rivers is awarded to Nathaniel Gray, pending final review." Luna gasped softly, but then the judge turned to William. "And Mr. Gray, you are hereby ordered to appear for a separate inquiry into evidence tampering and undue influence over a minor's welfare." William's mouth opened, but for once, no words came. Nathaniel closed his eyes, Luna's hand still in his. It wasn't over. Not yet. But they had finally taken the first real step toward freedom. Outside the courthouse, the wind was biting, but Nathaniel barely noticed it. He stood on the stone steps with Luna's hand still nestled in his, reporters swarming just beyond the barricades, cameras flashing like lightning in the growing dusk. He pulled Luna close, shielding her from the noise, the questions, the chaos. She clung to his coat, her cheek pressed against his chest, her trust like armor. Diane emerged beside them and leaned in. "We've arranged for a private car, back entrance, safer that way." Nathaniel nodded and turned to Luna. "Let's go." As they slipped into the car and pulled away, Marisol joined them in the back seat. She passed Nathaniel a flash drive. "Everything from the hospital whistleblower is on here, and I've got 2 journalists already circling the story. This won't stay buried." Nathaniel stared at the tiny object in his palm, realizing it might be the key to dismantling the empire his father had built on silence and control. "They're going to try something else," he murmured. "He's not done." "No," Marisol agreed, "but neither are we." Back at the penthouse, Luna disappeared into her room for a while. When Nathaniel knocked gently and peeked inside, he found her sitting on the floor with markers and paper spread around her. She looked up with red-rimmed eyes but offered a small smile. "I'm making a book," she said. "What kind of book?" "A book about truth," she replied, "so no one forgets." Nathaniel knelt beside her. The first page was a drawing of Callie, hair wild, eyes soft, with the moon behind her like a guardian. The second was a drawing of Luna standing between 2 people, Mia, drawn with sharp teeth and red eyes, and him, with a lion broken in half beside his feet. "I wasn't sure how to draw your dad," Luna said quietly. Nathaniel looked at the broken lion. You drew him perfectly. She tilted her head. Are you afraid of him? He didn't answer right away. Not for me, but for you, yes. Because he'll do anything to stay in control. She set down her marker and looked at him. Then I guess I'll help you fight. His throat tightened. You've fought more than anyone should ever have to. She reached for his hand. Not alone anymore. That night, while Luna slept, Nathaniel stood at the window staring down at the city. His phone buzzed again, another anonymous message. You've won a round, but she was never yours to claim. If you don't back off, we'll make sure you lose everything. He showed it to Marisol the next morning. She traced it to a burner phone, untraceable, but the pattern was clear. This is war now, she said, and if your father can't win in court, he'll come after your life in every other way. Nathaniel nodded grimly. Then we take the fight to him. He turned to Diane and Marisol. I want everything he's ever buried, every dirty contract, every ghost in his closet. Marisol smiled faintly. Then we'd better start digging deep. And far from the penthouse in the Gray Holdings boardroom, William watched as 3 board members resigned in one day. His grip on the empire he had built was beginning to slip, but his eyes, sharp and unflinching, never left the file in his hands. Inside it, a single photograph, a newborn wrapped in a hospital blanket, and a signature scrawled below it, Callie Rivers. Father, unknown. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, she should have stayed gone. In the days that followed, the city moved as usual. Cars honking, lights blinking, people rushing. But inside the penthouse, time took on a different rhythm. Nathaniel and Luna settled into a strange kind of peace, built on quiet routines and cautious hope. Mornings were spent at the kitchen counter, Luna learning to make omelettes. Afternoons she would sketch or read while Nathaniel made phone calls, working not just to protect her, but to tear down the machine that had almost erased her. Then, 3 days after the court hearing, the storm broke. Marisol burst into the penthouse, her coat still dusted with rain. It started, she said breathlessly. The story broke an hour ago. The Tribune published everything. William, Mia, the payments, the medical coercion, it's already going viral. Nathaniel stood, heart thudding. What are they saying? Marisol pulled up the article. The headline read, Empire of Silence. Gray Holdings scandal exposes generational control and custody manipulation. The expose was brutal and thorough. It named names, cited sources, and even included redacted versions of the hospital emails. The photo of William and Mia at a charity gala, smiling, their hands clasped, was splashed beneath the headline next to a photo of Luna, with her face partially obscured. Nathaniel scrolled through the article, each word hitting like a hammer. But none hit harder than the final paragraph. The child at the center of the storm, now in safe custody, has not been available for comment. But sources close to the case say she is finally, for the first time, being heard. Luna stepped beside him, reading over his arm. Is that about me? He nodded slowly. Yes. They're listening now. She tilted her head. Do you think Mommy would be proud? He couldn't speak for a moment. Then he crouched down, touching her cheek gently. More than proud. She'd be in awe of you. But the joy didn't last. That night, a rock smashed through the front window. The alarm blared. Luna screamed. Nathaniel grabbed her and pulled her down, shielding her as glass rained across the floor. Security swept in within minutes, but the damage had been done. On the rock, taped crudely, was a note. You want war? You've got it. Next time it won't be glass. Marisol arrived seconds after, visibly shaken. We need to move you tonight. I've secured a safe house. Nathaniel nodded, holding Luna close. We'll go. As they packed, Luna clutched a small stuffed fox, worn, one eye missing. He was Mommy's, she whispered. She said he kept nightmares away. Nathaniel zipped the bag around it, his hands trembling. Then we're taking him. By midnight, they were gone, and the penthouse, once a sanctuary, stood silent and shattered, a symbol of what they were up against, but also what they had survived. The safe house was nestled deep in the Hudson Valley, an old stone cottage surrounded by thick trees and the quiet hum of nature. It was a far cry from the glass towers of the city, but as Nathaniel and Luna stepped inside, the calm wrapped around them like a shield. No reporters, no lawyers, no shadows lurking behind tinted windows. Marisol had secured it through a retired federal marshal, someone she trusted. "It's off-grid," she said. "No digital trail. If anyone finds this place, it's not by accident." Nathaniel nodded. He believed her. Luna walked through the small living room, her fingers tracing the ridges of old books and the chipped paint of the fireplace mantel. "It smells like stories," she said softly. Nathaniel watched her, feeling the weight in his chest ease just a little. She hadn't smiled in days, not really, but here in this quiet space he saw the glimmer of one. They fell into a new rhythm. Mornings were slow. Hot chocolate on the porch, wrapped in blankets. Afternoons filled with puzzles, drawing, or walks along the wooded trails behind the cottage. For the first time in weeks, Luna began to laugh again, light, cautious, but real. One night, as they sat by the fireplace, Luna curled up beside him. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What if the judge changes her mind? What if she sends me away?" Nathaniel felt the words sink like stones in his gut. "She won't," he said. "We're building a case that no one can touch. But if something happens, anything, I will fight for you every hour, every day. I will not let anyone take you." She looked up at him. "Even if your dad tries again?" "Especially if he does." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a tiny notebook. She flipped it open and held it up to him. It was a drawing of them both, standing on a mountain, holding hands, with the sun behind them. Above their heads, she'd written one word: home. Nathaniel swallowed hard. "Is that where we are now?" She shrugged. "It's not about where we are, it's about who I'm with." He pulled her close, his heart aching with something too big for words. The next morning, the peace shattered again. Marisol burst into the cottage, breathless, phone in hand. "It's happened." Nathaniel stood. "What?" "Your father, he's been arrested." He stared at her. "For what?" "Fraud, obstruction, evidence tampering, and there's more." Two of his executives turned on him, gave the feds everything. This is going to unravel everything he's built. Luna stood in the doorway, watching. "Does that mean it's over?" Nathaniel turned to her, stunned, elated, shaken. "Maybe not over, but the power he had, it's gone." Marisol handed him a new file. "And with the company exposed, Mia has no more support. She withdrew her custody petition this morning." Luna's eyes widened. Nathaniel crouched in front of her, voice shaking. "You're staying with me for good." Luna didn't cry. She just jumped into his arms and whispered the only word that mattered now: "Daddy." The final custody hearing was held quietly, in a private courtroom, away from cameras and headlines. The storm had passed, but the echoes of its violence still lingered in every gesture, every quiet breath between words. Nathaniel sat beside Luna at the long oak table, his fingers gently brushing hers, a quiet reassurance. Across from them, Mia's seat was empty. She had signed the withdrawal affidavit 2 days prior, then disappeared. No one had heard from her since. William Gray, meanwhile, was under house arrest, awaiting federal charges that could carry decades of prison time. The man who once ruled over Nathaniel's life with an iron will now watched the world crumble from behind gated walls. The judge entered, calm and deliberate. She greeted both parties, reviewed the submitted documentation, and glanced down at Luna. "I understand you have something to say," she said gently. Luna stood. She wasn't dressed in court clothes or a uniform, just jeans and her favorite hoodie, sleeves pushed up, hair tucked behind her ears. But when she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "My name is Luna Rivers. I'm 8 years old. My mom died last year. She told me stories every night so I wouldn't forget who I was. She said the moon was always watching, That even if people left and it wouldn't. She took a breath. I didn't know my dad, but now I do. And I don't want anyone else. He listens. He stays. He makes me feel like I'm safe. Not just now, but later. And I know that's what my mom wanted. Silence followed. The judge smiled warmly. Thank you, Luna. She reviewed the final statements and then turned to Nathaniel. This court recognizes the petition of permanent custody to Nathaniel Gray. Effective immediately, all rights, decisions, and guardianship responsibilities now fall under his authority. Nathaniel closed his eyes for a brief moment, the weight of the journey crashing down in waves. Luna slipped her hand into his again, this time without fear. As they exited the courtroom, Diane hugged them both. You did it, she said. She's officially yours. No, Nathaniel replied, smiling down at Luna. I'm hers. Outside, the sky was wide and blue, a perfect canvas for everything ahead. They celebrated with hot chocolate and grilled cheese in a small cafe downtown, one that Luna picked out because it smelled like bread and stories. She scribbled in her notebook while Nathaniel watched her, still in awe of how much one life, his life, had changed. Later that night, back at the cottage, Luna asked if she could stay up past bedtime. Just one more hour, she said, so we can watch the moon. So they sat outside, wrapped in blankets, gazing up at the silver disk hanging silently in the sky. She's up there, Luna whispered, watching. She is, Nathaniel said, arm around her. They sat in silence for a while, and then Luna whispered, Can we stay here for real, not run anymore? Nathaniel looked at her and nodded. This is our home now. No more hiding. And as the moonlight washed over them, he finally felt it. Something he hadn't known he was missing for years. Peace. But as they turned to head inside, neither saw the dark car parked deep in the woods, or the figure watching them through binoculars, because some stories don't end when the court case closes. Some truths are still waiting in the shadows. The morning after the moonlit peace, a light frost kissed the windows of the stone cottage, and the sun rose slow and golden. Inside, Luna was humming softly as she brushed her teeth, while Nathaniel prepared breakfast: cinnamon toast, scrambled eggs, and the hot chocolate she now insisted was her morning coffee. He smiled at the sound of her little song. It was becoming their rhythm, warmth after cold, safety after fear. But in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the image of the note on the rock, the hidden threats, the weight of what still hadn't been said. Something was unfinished. Not with the court. Not with Mia, but with Callie. After breakfast, Nathaniel opened his laptop at the small table in the study. Marisol had sent him something late last night, an encrypted drive recovered from one of William Gray's storage units during the federal search. It contained hundreds of scanned documents, contracts, NDA agreements, even therapy transcripts from coerced employees. But one file stood out, labeled in Callie's handwriting, "For Luna, if anything happens to me." His hands trembled as he opened the audio file. Callie's voice crackled through the speakers, raw and intimate. "Hi, baby girl. If you're hearing this, I didn't get to say goodbye the way I wanted. I'm sorry. I tried. I tried so hard to protect you." Nathaniel sank slowly into the chair. "I left because I had to, because people with money, power, told me you'd be taken if I stayed. They told me he didn't want you, but I never believed it. Not really. I knew one day he'd come looking. And if he does, you be brave, Luna. Show him your light, he'll know it's his too." Her voice caught, then steadied. "And if you find this, Nathaniel, I forgive you. I know you didn't know, but now you do. And now she needs you to stay." The audio ended. Nathaniel wiped his face, silent tears running down his cheeks. He copied the file to a flash drive and tucked it into a drawer in case Luna ever wanted to hear it. But she was already standing in the doorway. "You found her voice," she whispered. He nodded, unable to speak. "Did she sound scared?" He hesitated. "She sounded strong, brave, just like you." Luna stepped into the room, her face serious. I want to hear it. Later, when I'm ready. You can, anytime. She walked over and hugged him tightly. She knew you'd come. He held her as long as she let him, feeling the layers of pain and love intertwining in ways only they could understand. But just as he began to feel a sense of closure forming, his phone buzzed again. A new number, a single message. You found her voice. Now let's see if you can handle what she didn't tell you. Attached, a single blurry photo. Callie, standing beside a man Nathaniel didn't recognize, but Luna's face was in the background, no more than 2 years old, and the man's hand rested on her shoulder like it belonged there. Nathaniel stared at the photo, every inch of his body tensing. Callie's expression was unreadable, neither joyful nor fearful, but something stranger, something caught between resignation and resolve. The man beside her was tall, dressed in a weathered coat, and wore a baseball cap pulled low. His face was turned just slightly from the camera, but it was clear enough to see he wasn't someone Nathaniel knew. And yet, Luna was there, just a toddler, standing close, tucked beside him like she was used to it. Nathaniel's breath caught. He zoomed in. The man's hand wasn't just resting on her shoulder. It was protective, familiar. Was it possible? He quickly forwarded the photo to Marisol with a note. Can you identify this man? Urgent. Then he turned to find Luna sitting cross-legged in the living room, sketching in her notebook. She looked up at him with those impossibly wide eyes, Callie's eyes, and he knew he couldn't tell her yet. Not until he knew what it meant. Later that day, as they walked a trail behind the cottage, Luna suddenly asked, Do you think Mommy had secrets? Nathaniel hesitated. I think everyone has something they're scared to talk about. She told me once, Luna said, kicking a rock off the path, that there was a friend who helped us when we were hiding, a man, but she never said his name, just that he used to make her laugh and that he disappeared before she got sick. Nathaniel felt his stomach twist. Did she ever say anything else about him? Luna nodded. She said he was good until he wasn't, and then she didn't trust anyone again. That night, Marisol called back. I found him. Nathaniel sat upright. Who is he? Name's Gabriel Knox, ex-private security. He worked for Grey Holdings for 3 years, quit after a public fallout with your father, went off-grid. Rumor is he had a relationship with Callie after she ran. Nathaniel's heart pounded. Was he... Is it possible... Marisol paused. DNA records are clean. You're the father. That hasn't changed. But Gabriel may have acted as a protector, or more. Nathaniel rubbed his temples. And now someone's sending photos? Threatening us again? I dug deeper, Marisol continued. Gabriel died 2 years ago, motorcycle accident. But there's no obituary, no burial records. It's like he vanished. Nathaniel was quiet for a long time. So, who's sending the messages? I don't know, she said. But whoever it is, they're not finished, and they know more about Callie's past than you do. Nathaniel looked over at Luna, now asleep on the couch, her sketchbook resting against her chest. Whatever Callie had been protecting her from hadn't died with Gabriel. Someone was still watching, and whatever truth was left was about to come knocking. The knock came just before midnight. 3 short, deliberate taps, then silence. Nathaniel's instincts kicked in instantly. He rose from the armchair where he'd been reading, crossed the living room quietly, and peered through the small peephole in the cottage's front door. No one was there. He opened the door slowly, the cold air rushing in. On the doorstep sat a package, small, wrapped in plain brown paper. No markings, no return address. Nathaniel scanned the woods but saw no movement. He brought the package inside cautiously, setting it on the table under the overhead light. Luna stirred slightly on the couch, still asleep under a heavy quilt. He unwrapped it. Inside was a flash drive and a note written in blocky, masculine handwriting, for her. When you're ready to know everything. Nathaniel plugged the drive into his laptop, heart thudding. A single video file. He hesitated, then clicked play. The footage was grainy, clearly from a handheld camera. It showed Callie, older, thinner than in the photos, sitting on a motel bed. The room was dim, the curtains drawn. She looked directly into the camera. "Luna," she said softly, "if you're seeing this, it means I couldn't outrun the truth anymore. I tried. God, I tried. But they always find you, especially when they think you're holding something that belongs to them." She took a breath. "There was a time after your father and I split when I thought I could fix things. I met someone, Gabriel. He said he could protect us. He worked for your grandfather. I didn't know that at first. But when I did, I was already too deep." She paused again, looking down, then back up. "I loved him. I think in some broken way he loved us back. But then he changed, got paranoid, violent, started talking about leverage, that you were leverage." Nathaniel's breath caught. "I ran, again, took you with me, and I never stopped, because I realized the truth. No matter who I trusted, someone always wanted to use you, either to get to me or to hurt your father." The video cut briefly, then resumed. "If Nathaniel's with you, I'd tell him I'm sorry. I lied, not about loving him, but about leaving. I left because I was told if I didn't, he'd lose everything, his company, his future, his safety." She smiled faintly through the pain. "And Luna, if he's with you now, then I was right to believe he'd come back for us." The screen went black. Nathaniel sat motionless, the silence roaring around him. Then Luna's voice came quietly behind him. "She knew," she whispered. "She knew what would happen." He turned to see her standing there, her eyes wide and shining with unshed tears. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said gently. "I needed to," she replied, "because it means she didn't run from me. She ran with me." She walked to the table and picked up the note. "She wanted us to know everything." Nathaniel nodded slowly. But what haunted him most wasn't Callie's confession. It was the question left behind. If Gabriel had wanted leverage, what exactly was he planning to do with Luna? And who had inherited that plan now? The following morning brought no rest. Nathaniel rose early, the weight of Callie's message still pressing against his chest. He replayed the video in his mind on a loop, her voice, her warnings, the truth about Gabriel. It changed everything, and yet it explained so much. Marisol called just after dawn. "I found something," she said without preamble. "Gabriel Knox wasn't just ex-security. He was involved in an internal Grey Holdings operation known as Project Latchkey. It was off the books, your father's personal initiative." Nathaniel stood, jaw tightening. "What was it?" "I don't know all the details, but it involved targeting unstable elements, which included former employees, ex-partners, and whistleblowers. The language is vague, but Luna's name appears twice, once next to Callie's. Once on a list marked contingency." His blood ran cold. "Contingency for what?" "Leverage," Marisol said grimly. "Your father and Gabriel were planning something. If Callie didn't comply, they'd use Luna to force her hand." Nathaniel gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. "But Gabriel died 2 years ago." "Maybe," she said. "But someone else took over. That flash drive, the note, the photo. Someone's still running the program, or what's left of it." He glanced over at Luna, who sat wrapped in a blanket by the window, drawing the sun as it rose through the trees. "I'm done waiting," Nathaniel said. "I want names. I want everything." "I'm already on it," Marisol replied. "But be careful. You've rattled the right cages. Now they'll rattle back." As he ended the call, the landline rang, an old rotary phone that came with the cottage. No one had used it before. He answered cautiously. "Hello?" A woman's voice replied, distorted but calm. "You're close, Nathaniel, but you haven't asked the right question yet. Who is this? You keep asking what Gabriel wanted, but you should be asking why Luna was so valuable." He froze. "What does that mean?" "It means Callie wasn't the only one hiding something." The line went dead. Nathaniel stood there for a long time, the silence deafening. He turned to Luna. "Do you remember Gabriel ever taking you somewhere special? Showing you anything weird?" She shook her head slowly. "Just once." A place in the woods. He said it was safe. It had locks on the outside of the doors. Nathaniel's skin prickled. Like a safe house? She hesitated. More like a cell. Later that afternoon, Marisol arrived with documents in hand. She handed him a copy of an old police report from a rural county near the state border. Unmarked facility, fire damage, 1 confirmed death, no arrests, report sealed by Gray Holdings lawyers. In the margin, someone had written, Project Latchkey terminated, assets neutralized. One of the assets, LR, minor, alive, missing, Luna Rivers. Nathaniel read the line over and over, his stomach turning. His daughter had been classified as an asset, and whatever they had wanted from her, they hadn't given up. That night, a storm rolled in over the Hudson Valley, thunder cracking in the distance as heavy rain lashed the windows. Inside the cottage, the lights flickered twice, then held steady. Nathaniel paced the floor, the documents spread across the dining table like a map of buried sins. Luna sat curled on the couch with her sketchbook, but her eyes kept drifting to him, sensing the tremble beneath his calm. Marisol was seated nearby, her laptop open, scanning encrypted messages and cross-referencing Project Latchkey's remnants. "We're missing something," she muttered. "This kind of operation doesn't just disappear. There's someone keeping it alive." Nathaniel stopped pacing. Someone who knew Callie, someone who knew about Luna, and someone who had access to the original files. Marisol looked up. "There's one name that keeps reappearing. Internal memos, emails, even in the asset transfer notes. Initials, DC. "Who is it?" Marisol narrowed her eyes. "Darren Cole, former legal counsel for Gray Holdings, handled acquisitions, HR disputes, and non-disclosure litigation. He disappeared 2 years ago after Gabriel's death." "Another ghost," Nathaniel muttered. "Except he didn't die. He just changed names. I traced him to a medical consulting firm in Pennsylvania, under the name Daniel Crane. He's still active. And here's the kicker. He's been making regular visits to a private mental health facility on the outskirts of Albany." Nathaniel's breath hitched. "Is Luna listed as a patient?" "No, but there are redacted patient files. And one of the few names in the visitor log is his, every month, like clockwork." Nathaniel turned toward Luna. "What if this wasn't about leverage? What if it was about experimenting?" Luna looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" He knelt in front of her. "Do you remember anyone ever giving you pills or asking you strange questions?" She frowned. "Gabriel used to give Mommy little bottles, and one time he made me sit in a dark room and count backwards, from 100. He said it was a game." Nathaniel felt the bile rise in his throat. He looked at Marisol. "I need to see that facility." "I'll get you in," she said, "but we don't know what we're walking into." "I don't care." The next morning, they drove north under heavy skies. Luna stayed behind with Marisol's most trusted colleague, former military, quiet, kind. She didn't protest. Not anymore. She knew this was bigger than secrets now. Nathaniel arrived at the facility just before noon. The building loomed on a hill, surrounded by chain-link fencing and dense woods. The receptionist greeted him with a plastic smile, but when he asked for Daniel Crane, her face changed. "I'm sorry," she said. "He doesn't take unscheduled appointments." "Then schedule one," he replied, voice iron. As she hesitated, a voice echoed from the hallway behind her. "That won't be necessary." Nathaniel turned. A man in his late 50s stood in the doorway. Slim, clean-shaven, unremarkable, except for his eyes. Cold, clinical. "I've been expecting you, Mr. Gray," he said. "Shall we talk?" Nathaniel followed him into a sterile office. No photos, no personal touches, just walls of locked cabinets and a single file on the desk. Cole opened it. Inside, a photo of Luna and a small vial. "This," he said, tapping the glass tube, "is what your father invested in." Nathaniel stared at it. "What is it?" "Something only Luna ever survived." "A neurological serum, prototype, meant to enhance memory retention, emotional inhibition, and compliance. His voice was casual, like discussing weather. She was the only one who adapted. We tried 5 subjects. 4 regressed. 1 died. Nathaniel's fists clenched. You're saying you tested on her? No, Cole said. We trained her. Nathaniel stood. You're done. But Cole's voice was calm as ever. She's not who you think she is, and when her memory returns fully, you won't be either. Nathaniel didn't respond. He turned and walked out. But as he stepped into the parking lot, the storm broke above, and deep inside him, something else began to break too. Because he realized the final truth. They hadn't just wanted Luna for leverage. They'd made her into something they could use, and now they wanted her back.